where did everybody go? So, welcome to Puwede. Yes. Well, the previous one was live from the shop, and then ngayon it's Puwede Magtanong. But I left you a couple of minutes ago. It was still April 8th, and now it is April 9. Please come back, audience. But while we're waiting, we might as well, you know what's coming. I will treat you to same.
Sawa ka na ba sa unactivated Windows mo? Well, lucky you! Pinakabago mula sa cdkeyoffer.com. Windows 10 and Windows 11 activation codes. Legit, safe, at pinakamura. Madali lang umorder. Hanapin ang Windows version na gusto mo. Piliin ang preferred payment method. Wala pang 5 minutes, nag-CDK ka na para sa Windows mo. Marami na kaming natulungan.
Dati, sad and depressed ako. But now, I found the love of my life.
Dati, aimless and walang purpose ang life ko. But now, I'm a world-class Zumba instructor.
So, web developer ako and content creator for a YouTube channel. And ngayon, ganun pa rin ako pero activated na yung Windows ko.
Kaya kung naghahanap ka ng legit, mura, at original software,
Check out cdkeyoffer.com.
Check out cdkeyoffer.com.
Check out cdkeyoffer.com.
So to recap, I've been here since 11 plus or so p.m. yesterday, and we're doing a back-to-back stream. So supposedly the first stream was about live from the shop, and then ngayon it's Pwede Magtanong, but a lot of people had questions, so we started taking the questions kanina. Okay, let's not spill anything because there's a lot of computer equipment here. But the chat apparently is still up. Um, sup, 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 Osir. I know that you were on the last stream. Okay, we get asked this a lot. Is it okay to use DRAMless SSD? Yes, it's fine. So, you know, whether an SSD has, sorry, there's a mosquito running around. Whether an SSD has DRAM or not, that's one of the things enthusiasts like to say to make non-enthusiasts feel bad. Oh, yung binili mong SSD, DRAMless, walang kwenta yan, mas maganda yung may DRAM. But first of all, it's really difficult to determine. Not all SSDs that have DRAM specifically say that they have DRAM. So it's hard to determine which are DRAMless, which are not, because they kind of change actually. The manufacturers are not consistent with that depending on the model. And performance wise, yes, it's nice to have DRAM, but it's not a deal breaker kung DRAMless siya. The NVMe I'm using is for my own personal rig, the Team Group MP33 1TB NVMe. It's fine. It's very fast. I'm very happy with its performance. It is DRAMless. So I feel like it's one of those things na. I heard my phone. Okay. I heard my phone. Let me check. Just want to make sure. Oh. So it's one of those things that are nice to have, but you don't need to freak out if you don't have it. And I also feel it's one of those things that people like to say para to give that aura na that they're in the know. Oh, but yung SSD mo walang DRAM. And then kung di ka ganun ka into computers, you'll be like, uy, ano yun? Baka kailangan yun. I mean, it sounds so technical. It sounds good like what it does, but yeah, it's nice to have, but I wouldn't freak out about it if I don't have it. And yeah, putting my money where my mouth is, my own SSD, the one that I use, is DRAMless. This one is undergoing. Well, you're supposed to switch the orientation. Apparently, switch to left orientation. I think actually this is a new build, and if you notice, it's hard. This is actually a ProArt GPU. The customer didn't order a ProArt GPU. He paid for a regular GPU. We ordered from our supplier the regular GPU and paid for the regular GPU, but the supplier ran out, and the supplier was like, "We'll just give you a ProArt GPU, which is a heck of a lot more expensive than a regular GPU." So this is the Asus ProArt GPU here. Hard to see on camera, but yeah. So basically, the customer got a free upgrade. Thank you to our supplier for just giving us the Pro Art, and then we passed on the Pro Art to the customer. But I think yun nga, he wants it in a different orientation or something. I'm not quite sure. Tsaka this wire is a bit long. Although kasi wala nang ibang mataguan eh. We'll try to get a close up on that later. God damn, Kaiser, I hear you. I hear you, man. We're talking. This is like crypto talk again. I'll try to keep it short, pero it feels like that, right? Every time you go long, the market drops. Every time you go short, the market goes up, and you're just like, what the goddamn heck, right? I mean, it is so frustrating sometimes. Yun nga, the past 3 weeks, I have been very frustrated with myself, and the calls that I've done. And yeah, I'll save the self-loathing for Crypto Watch. Marky asked this in the last stream, and someone else answered it. Um, Someone else answered it. Gamerzone mentioned na. Sup, Renan? Gamerzone mentioned that we did tackle this in one of the more recent episodes of podcast. We talked we interviewed Kirby from Blue Skies. If you were a student in the Katipunan area around like late 90s, mid aughts, I mean, Blue Skies is an institution. It was very interesting to talk to Herbie and get his thoughts on the state of the industry now, because he has been in the industry basically from the beginning, like nung usop. And I found it very interesting the way he described it na una, pang school yan, pang business, yung papasok yung mga customer para mag-print, para mag-research sa internet. And then he got into gaming kasi he wanted to do may downtime kasi yung mga computer, like dadating lang yung mga customer like start of the day to print, and then late in the day para mag-print. So during the heavy hours, during most of the day, wala masyadong gumagamit ng computer, but he figured that if he started to offer gaming, then he might get some people in even at during the off hours. And then that really took off, and that became the focus of the business. And then ngayon, with everyone having access to high speed internet, with better computers at home, the games also are more optimized now to run online. Um, the business is starting to shift back to appealing to people who need printing, internet research, and things like that, and less gaming. So, uh, kumbaga nag full circle na yung PisoNet or yung LAN cafe type of business. Speaking of the podcast, we've actually done a lot of interviews after that. I just haven't been able to find the time to edit them. That is completely on me. I do hope to edit I do hope to be able to get back to editing the podcast. Hopefully, actually, this week we'll be dropping the episode where I talk to a PNP police officer regarding cybercrime violation. So super interest that conversation was super interesting, because it is so relevant now. I mean, basically anything, kahit anong kalokohan na nangyari online, the PNP Cybercrime Division has jurisdiction over that, whether it's a scam, whether it is you're extorting someone through text. Let's say you were in a relationship. This happens all the time. Nag-break kayo. The guy suddenly starts threatening the girl with, I still have nude pictures of you and I'm gonna release them on the internet. But if you don't give me some money, because the medium of extortion was over text, that makes it fall under the jurisdiction of the cybercrime division. So lahat 'yun na nalalagay sa kanila. Lahat 'yun parang jurisdiction nila. Um um and from a lawyer perspective, it's interesting that the crime that they're ascribing to that extortion is robbery. Kasi robbery as defined under the law is upon thing force upon things or intimidation, force or intimidation on people. So parang extortion, you're trying to intimidate someone to give you money. That's where that's why it falls under the definition of robbery. It's interesting because when we studied that when we studied that crime in law school, that wasn't how it was being applied. So it's interesting how new situations, the law still covers them. It's just that it's the same crime. People are just finding new ways of doing it through yun nga, through text, extortion through text, through email, through chat or things like that. So interesting lang. And I do hope to finally get that episode out of the podcast. We have a bunch of other podcast episodes in the pipeline, but actually the slowdown started when I went to China with Deep Cool at the start of March. That was a really great trip. You can learn more about it in the video we did for part one. I mentioned it dropped last week, so it's on the channel now. I mentioned part one because we are doing part two, which I also need to edit. I hope to edit that soon. And yeah, there's a bunch of things I need to edit. So that's my bad, but I will hopefully get on it soon. Okay lang po ba yung 3060 Ti sa Gigabyte A320M and 550 watt PSU is R5 3400G? Not a usual pairing. Usually a 3060 Ti, you maybe want like a B550. The CPU also not the best choice. Pero okay na, okay na. Like, it's not as egregious as the GTX 750 and the Ryzen 5 5600 ba yun or something, the one we talked about in the previous stream. So it's not as bad as that. Okay naman to. Actually, more of my concern here is the 550 watt PSU. I would prefer a 650 watt PSU just because, you already paid for a 3060 Ti. You might as well ensure that you're getting the most performance you can from it and making sure it gets enough juice, enough power. I would be more comfortable with the 650 watt PSU. So actually, it's not the motherboard, it's not the CPU, but for the specs that you described, sana 650 watt PSU. All right, these are actually I think the old comments. I didn't realize that the streaming service I used to broadcast to both Facebook and YouTube at the same time would allow me to keep the old chat. Um, but I will try to get to the new chat now. Kung bibili ako ng case sa Hardware Sugar and then papalipat mo, we call this a transplant. So yung old hardware mo, lilipat sa new case. How much is that? It is free. Transplants are free as long as the new case is bought from us. So yeah, short answer, wala. Zero, libre yan. Basta yung bagong case mo galing sa amin, we will transplant your PC for free. God, yes. God, yes. April 20 is the estimated date. Um, yes, we do full builds, and yes, we do ship them to the provinces. We've done it many times already, actually, as far as Mindanao, and like not even yung medyo sa Prevenjan, not even yung medyo urban centers ng Mindanao, like I mean tipong Tawi-Tawi type, we've sent as far as that, so kaya naman. What we haven't done is Canada, and I think I know this guy. Sup, I don't know if I should say your name out loud. I don't know if you want to keep your privacy, but I think I know who you are, and I hope you're doing well there in Canada. 5600G, 4060, second-hand market, 3060. I mean, dun pumapalo basically. On the AMD side, para mas mura, I would try to spend a bit more actually, 6700 XT, if you can find a good price for it. Since AMD generally goes for cheaper, and you can try to get faster GPUs. So 6700 XT, I think wouldn't be out of the question if you can get it at a good price. Kung Nvidia 3060, 4060, note that the 4060 is cheaper and faster than the 3060. I'm just mentioning the 3060 kasi baka may mahanap ka na good price na second hand since medyo luma na nga rin sila. Okay. Is it a Hooray to the long week, the awkward long weekend, Tuesday and Wednesday. But yeah, we are streaming live from the shop. I know you know Casey because I saw you in the previous stream. So this is two of two. So this is my second back to back. Yeah, the schedule just seemed to fit well. I thought na people would enjoy it. Is certainly more of an audience now. I think we have 52 concurrent viewers, 13 from Facebook and 39 from YouTube. Yeah, and it just fit. Like I wanted to do it from the shop. I mean, I do a regular stream from the shop, although I haven't been able to talk much about the shop yet. Actually. All right, more tech questions. If I can play games like AAA games with an R55600X, well, this is this might confuse people, so let me break it down. So the question is, I have a Ryzen 5 5600, that's a CPU. Can I play games? Never mind AAA games. Let's just make it super basic. Can I play games with that? No, you cannot. Like non-letter CPU. For the AM4, the letters are very important. So this CPU, the one you mentioned, Ryzen 5 5600, doesn't have integrated graphics. You need a GPU not just to run games, but to run anything. Kahit yung Windows, kailangan mo ng GPU. What you want for the AM4 5000 series, you need to get the one with the G series. So that's the Ryzen 5 5600G or the Ryzen 7 5700G. You made G because for that CPU line, the G means na may integrated graphics siya. So, short answer, you will not be able to play any games, let alone run anything. Even Windows won't run if you get just a CPU na walang letter. Because there are non-letter CPUs of that product line. May Ryzen, I think there's an R5 5600, full stop, no letter. Um, but the G is important for that line kasi it means may integrated graphics siya. And with integrated graphics, you can run Windows, you can run games without an installed graphics card. But the Ryzen 5 56, oh god, I just saw we have a slight rat problem in the shop. I just saw one run by like in front of me. um we have laid out traps, but so far I guess I thought we've been catching, but I guess there's still some. But I was saying the Ryzen 5 5600G is excellent value for money, but you should set your expectations. You will not be able to run AAA games with the R5 5600G or even the Ryzen 7 5700G. For AAA games, there's just no way around it. You should really get a dedicated GPU. Very much so, just because it's more like it's a quality issue. Like, are the batteries okay? The top of the line UPS brand, uninterrupted power supply brand, is APC. They do cost a bit more. The one that we regularly stock at the shop is ProLink. So that's like a step below or under APC. They're still very good. They're cheaper though. We have had some RMA issues, not gonna lie. But what I like about them is, yun nga, mas mura sila, usually reliable, and kung magka-problema, madali yung RMA process. So, hindi patayan to get your thing replaced kung magka-problema nga. Yung APC, we don't usually carry a lot of them. They are noticeably pricier than the lower tier brands. Top tier kasi yung APC for UPS. Um, But yes, brands do matter just in the sense na it's really a quality issue. Like if the power goes out, you want to be able to rely on um the UPS that it will provide the power that you need to shut down your computer properly to save the work that you're doing. The lower tier brands, yun nga, if you go lower pa than ProLink, I don't know. I don't have any other trusted na brand na lower tier than ProLink. Um, so yun nga, I'm very upfront na ProLink is not the pinaka top tier, but it gets the job done at a better price, and the RMA is it's very easy. So that's why we recommend something like ProLink over APC, which we can get, but ang mahal talaga ng APC eh. So, did I okay lang ba yung 6600 GPU for 3700G? Fine, no problem. Yeah. No, I'd stick the GPU is fine with that CPU. Again, it's better if the GPU might be a little overpowered kasi um sub Zedekiah because for gaming, you're really gonna use a lot more of the GPU anyway. Sup, Revenjan? God damn, I hope that rat doesn't come over and bite me or something. Hindi naman siguro. I'm burning the midnight oil for back-to-back streams. 4 GB, not gonna lie, 4 GB is pretty long to recover. I don't know if it'll be able to recover it, but we did a sponsored video for a product like 2 years ago. The name of the product is Wonder Share Recovery. It was a sponsored video, but I tested the software talaga. So I deleted video files and I tried to recover them. It was able to recover everything. I did not try something as long as a 4 GB file. But I was pretty impressed. So it was a sponsored video, so we got paid to feature certain aspects of the software. But even if it was a sponsored video, I personally was the one who did the testing for that. So I downloaded the software, installed it, activated it, and I tried to delete certain things. I made it harder for it kasi kahit sa recycle bin, tinanggal ko empty recycle bin. Tapos na ano pa niya, na recover pa niya. So if you wanna see the video on that, you just search Wondershare Recovery or Wondershare Recover dun sa YouTube channel namin. And yeah, it worked well, and I'm not saying that just because I got paid 2 years ago to to do a sponsored video on it. From the testing that I did on it, it was yeah, it did its job. So you might want to try that. But yun nga, a 4 GB file, is a little long. Also depends kasi on how long ago it was when it was deleted. Not to get on the not to get into the nitty-gritty, but when computers kasi save, they don't save in chunks, hindi siya organized. Especially on an old hard disk, like with an actual spinning, rotating disk, kung saan-saan yan linalagay yung files, yung data, kung saan-saan sectors. I don't know, I think it's the same for NVMe. There are no moving parts kasi in SSDs. Sorry, even with SATA SSDs. There are no moving parts in SSDs, but the way I think it dumps data into memory, I still is basically the same. Like, bara-bara pa rin siya. So, the problem with that is once you delete something, you're basically telling the computer, pwede mo na i-overwrite yung data na tinapon mo dun. So, your 4 GB file could be scattered over the entire storage. Kumbaga, kung kwarto siya, sorry, kung bahay yung storage mo, pwede siya sa kitchen, pwede siya sa bathroom, pwede siya sa inodoro, pwede siya sa rooftop. Yun nga, kung saan-saan nilalagay ng computer mo yung data dun sa storage. And then when you delete something, you're just telling the computer, pwede mo na i-overwrite tong location na to. So, yung dating linagay mo sa kitchen, may iba na pwede nang ilagay dun sa kitchen. So that's why I mentioned time because over time, new data might have overridden segments of that file that you're trying to recover. So it's it's difficult the longer it was in time since you deleted that file. But yeah, short answer, I would we're at 69. Nice. Where sorry, I I meant like someone I was talking to someone who but we dropped to 64, not nice. I was talking to someone who's not super internet savvy and then she mentioned 69 and just automatically I said nice, which is kind of like it's kind of like a juvenile thing to say, but I'm on the internet a lot for work, so it's just like automatic. Ooh, 69, nice. Anyway, um, yeah, short answer, try Wondershare. I was pretty impressed by it, and I'm not saying that just because they paid me to say that 2 years ago. I know, right, Rafael James? Sup, Rafael James? Thank you for being a YouTube member. Uh, Thank you to all the YouTube members, but in particular the top fans. Really appreciate it. Especially now that I need to replace the lens on my camera because I was a doofus and the big light. You can't actually see the big light, but it's right there in the back. I dropped it on the other camera and like it broke the lens. Anyway, is 1070 8 gigabytes still worth it? And for future proof, no. 1070 was quite good back in the day, but it is quite old now. I If you can get it for dirt cheap and you're gonna use it for maybe 6 months and depending on the game, pwede na. But for future proofing, no. No, 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 no. No, no. No, 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 no. PSU wattage, do you need for an R5 to 600, 1050 Ti, 16 gigabytes, A520, 550 watt? Get a decent 550 watt, 80 plus bronze CPU. Sorry, sorry, 80 plus bronze PSU, and that is good for those specs. I think you also identified sino si Canada guy, Casey Bolios. Uh, since Casey Bolios is in stream, I don't know if this is part of data privacy, but anyway, sorry. Let me just walk off stream, and then we do have speak. We talked about the second-hand store earlier. We do still have this on sale from LTT. This is from I think LT. Yeah, this is the LT. Oh wait, let me get the camera in focus. So this was yes, Linus Tech Tips XL. So this was posted by one of our customers. This is on the secondhand parts list, even though this is not secondhand. It was he bought too much of it, and yeah, there were a lot of other LTT store items like more sweaters and then like bottles and things. But I think this is the only one left na available. Um, yeah, so lttstore.com available at Hardware Sugar. San ka pa? Sorry, let me Ken Season. Oh, we're at 73 now. You guys need to get some sleep, man. How come when I do live streams at like 7 o'clock, I get like 13 people, but I was like 73 on 12:30. 7600 XT or 4060. I already admitted my bias. There was a video we did like 2 weeks ago na basically it's talking about my personal preferences for computing, and then I do mention like some of the brands that I favor. Generally, I favor Nvidia over AMD for GPUs just because Nvidia's drivers are always generally better than AMD's. They try to push the hardware. Um, they were the first ones to come up with the RTX. And then I mentioned this before in the streams and in the videos. RTX or getting realistic lighting was such a hard problem that before Nvidia came along, there were computer scientists saying like it will be impossible to get that number of light rays in a simulation. Like imposible yan, imposible. Ganon kahirap yung computing challenge na tinake on ni Nvidia. As gamers kasi we just think that the lighting isn't really that great. RTX on parang um it seems like an artificial come on. Parang ano lang siya. Oh, we're back at 69. Nice. I don't think you can see the counter actually, but we're currently at 69. Sorry, being juvenile again. Um, And in some games, the RTX implementation isn't that great. You're like, well, yun lang pala yung RTX. I can live without it. But as a concept, as a computational challenge, there were computer science papers before stating that yung RTX, what RTX is doing, like having X number of light rays, and then based on the positioning of the light source, that's impossible to do. But Nvidia did it, as we all know. So Nvidia pushes the technology forward. Even sa AMD graphics cards, yung pinaka high-end nilang currently, 7900 XTX, is only comparable to the 4080, not even the top end of Nvidia. Yung King of the Hill, yung award na pinakamabilis, wala, binigay na yan ni AMD kay Nvidia. So I appreciate Nvidia's drivers. Usually they are rock solid or better, more solid than AMD's. Maybe rock solid is an exaggeration. They try to push the technology forward. Um, AMD can be better value for money if you don't mind futzing around more with your computer. If you're comfortable, spending the time tweaking the drivers, going back maybe a version or two, changing the settings, and you don't mind, you don't want the best RTX performance, then AMD, yes, is a good choice. But for mainstream gamers, especially for a lot of customers in the shop, where not everybody is super techy, and not everybody also wants to futz around with the drivers every time a new version comes around. Every time a new version of a game is released, like the game updates itself, biglang di nagagana yung graphics card mo. That's an exaggeration. Di naman ganun yung AMD, but hindi pa rin siya kasing stable ng Nvidia drivers eh. And for a lot of mainstream customers, it's just not worth their time and hassle and the shop hassle of having to guide people through software related problems na hindi naman hardware related. But and yet we still do it. But it's a lot simpler for a lot more people if you're not that comfortable, messing around with your computer. If you just get an Nvidia GPU, I myself prefer Nvidia GPUs, even though I prefer AMD CPUs. So personally, for me, I would say 4060. Kind of confused sa PC ko right now. i5 13600K, not bad. 3060, not bad. Parang the way the I see the specs, and then you're like, based on my research, it's supposed to be good for video editing. Yung tawag natin in the law, we would call this a uh I'm gonna like say something about the law that I forgot the term. But basically, parang there's an assumption here. Based on my research, it should be good for video editing. So the unworded assumption is that you feel based on your experience, hindi siya maganda for video editing. Um, I I would need to know what exactly about it you feel isn't good for video editing. But off the top of my head, two things. One, are you using an SSD? Because yes, your specs are good, but if you're running all of this on a hard drive, mabagal pa rin yun. Get yourself an SSD. Everybody watching right now, the 66 people watching right now, if your computer doesn't have an SSD, please God, yan yung dapat yung next upgrade mo. Ang layo ng performance ng hard drive tsaka nung SSD. There are different flavors of SSD. The slower one is the SATA SSD. But even the SATA SSD is so much more faster than a hard drive. And you can really, that's really like a quality of life improvement. Everything will run faster. Not just your games, but your Windows boot up time, your whatever program you're using to editing. So if you don't have an SSD yet, that should be your number one upgrade priority. Kasi yun talaga mararamdaman mo yung speed increase. Yung boot up pa lang ng Windows, sobrang bilis. You can get yourself an NVMe SSD, which is the fastest type of SSD. But even a SATA SSD will be light years faster. Like talagang mararamdaman mo yung yung upgrade, yung speed, yung bilis after going from a hard drive to an SSD. And you can keep your hard drive for additional storage for your video files, for your image files. But the programs that you want to run fast, of course, your OS, your games, your video editing program, put that on the SSD. And number two, there are some programs which need the paid version to use hardware acceleration. Although that's the common thought, but based on my research, like I use DaVinci Resolve, which is a very good free program for video editing. Supposedly, the newer versions of Resolve also use hardware acceleration, even if you're using the free version. So that advice might not be super accurate, but I would still check on it depending on what program you're using. And kasi to be honest, itong like si DaVinci Resolve, they also don't make it easy. I haven't found an answer that just says yes, even the free version uses GPU acceleration, for example. But from what I can gather from the forums and things like that, parang kahit yung free version, gumagamit na rin nung GPU acceleration. But if you're using Adobe, I don't know what Premiere uses, like for the free version, kung kasama ba yung acceleration dun. So yeah, those two things. One, are you using an SSD? And two, what program are you using? Depending on the program, you might need to use the paid version to access all of the hardware acceleration that might be possible with that program. So it is getting a little late. I will not be leaving just yet, so I'll try to go through more questions, but please do let me run the ad again. I owe the sponsor two live streams where I played the ad twice. So after I play this one, okay na tayo with the sponsor for this month. I just need two live streams. So see you after 40 seconds.
Sawa ka na ba sa unactivated Windows mo? Well, lucky you! Pinakabago mula sa cdkeyoffer.com. Windows 10 and Windows 11 activation codes. Legit, safe, at pinakamura. Madali lang umorder. Hanapin ang Windows version na gusto mo. Piliin ang preferred payment method. Wala pang 5 minutes, nag-CDK ka na para sa Windows mo. Marami na kaming natulungan.
Dati, sad and depressed ako. But now, I found the love of my life.
Dati, aimless and walang purpose ang life ko. But now, I'm a world-class Zumba instructor.
So, web developer ako and content creator for a YouTube channel. And ngayon, ganun pa rin ako pero activated na yung Windows ko.
Kaya kung naghahanap ka ng legit, mura, at original software,
Check out cdkeyoffer.com.
Check out cdkeyoffer.com.
Check out cdkeyoffer.com. Yeah, there are a lot more people awake, but I also think it's because of it's like, oh, holiday bukas, I can wake up late, parang ganyan. Yes. So I'll try to answer a few more questions. I do actually live near the shop, yes. Um, I live in Makati. All of like we've had three different shop locations. We keep expanding. Like each location we go to gets bigger and bigger. But they're always in Makati so that I can be relatively close to the shop. So yes, I do live close. But it wouldn't matter so much now kasi wala naman traffic at this point. Like when I'm going home. Like God willing, if we do expand to another location in a couple of years, like of course I would want to stream from there also. But it would be more difficult for me logistically since it would be outside of Makati naman para we can cover more areas. So I would want to stream there also. It's just na yeah, it might it would be more effort for me to get to there. But sana we can expand to more locations in the like medium term goal. Worth it to change CPU motherboard from R7 4700G to B450M to R5 5600X B550M? I would keep the motherboard, the B450M, and then change the CPU to the R5 5600X. The B450M versus the B550M, it's not that big a difference. I think you're just talking about PCIe lanes basically. And that's more like yes, there's a theoretical improvement from the B550M to the B450M, but not that big of a real world improvement in performance. So I just save the money. I'd keep the motherboard, but I would upgrade the CPU. Affordable wireless mouse recommendation. I'm going to be honest. I'm a little spoiled because ROG sends its stuff over. ROG is great, but it's not budget. Um, I'm using an ROG wireless mouse now, the Harpy Ace Lab Wireless Aim Lab Edition or something like that, which I really like. It's boring, but it's a solid mouse. Great performance. Battery life is excellent. Before that, I was using a Logitech, which was also pretty good. But yun nga, ROG, Logitech are a little medyo high-end brands. Yung kung budget, affordable na wireless, actually my only recommendation is don't get Steel Series. Like I've tried different products from Steel Series, their mouse, their headsets, but Steel, I don't know, palaging palpak yung Steel Series for me. Yung Razer din. Like I've had several Razer mice. I just never learned my lesson. Depending on what model you get, Razer can sort of be affordable, but I wouldn't recommend Razer, I wouldn't recommend Steel Series. So it's not much of a recommendation because I'm not telling you what to get, I'm sort of telling you what not to get. But yeah, I would steer clear of those two brands. They're very popular brands, but I've just never palagi akong malas sa kanila. I don't feel I got value for money from their products. Oh, here's Gene. Um, yes, that's not worth it anymore. Yeah, pretty much. Rendering on Adobe After Effects is still taking so long. I think this is the one I mentioned. Like I don't know. Yeah, yeah. So the one I said, get an SSD or check your software program. Rendering pala yung issue. Matagal talaga yung rendering. I mean, wala. I mean, if you want faster rendering, you're gonna have to get a beefier setup. It's not the specs you mentioned. Well, actually, the two suggestions I gave you are still applicable to your problem. But for rendering, I mean, it's a mid range. The setup is mid range. I don't know what you're rendering, pero I it's I wouldn't fault the hardware. Rendering is hard. Threadripper Pro tong ano. Kung sana all, like sana all na could have a Threadripper Pro for their video editing rig. But yeah, rendering is hard. I can imagine that it might take some time, depending on what you're doing and on the specs that you have. Pero wala, ganun talaga. I mean, it's like it is what it is. If it were running slow, I actually don't think that that would be a sign of a problem because yeah, I would expect it to take some time, based on the specs that you have. Rafael James, all I see is like OLED. Yes, I agree. OLED. Damn OLED, man. I can't go back anymore. The ASUS sent over a new gaming monitor. And it's like, wow, 27 inches, 180 hertz, good, good. IPS, and it's not like it's just I'm really spoiled na talaga sa monitor wise. Like I couldn't like my laptop is also oh sorry, I was gonna orient it to the screen but naka plug in pala siya for power. I also had to get an OLED for my laptop. It's just na I can't go back anymore. IPS, is good. But yeah, if you could afford if the budget made room for OLED, I would say OLED all the way. All the way. Is this a good build? i5 14400F and then the Mobo B760. Um, the 14400F for me is a little weird because it's a little underpowered compared to the GPU. I would go like with the 14600K. Pero if this is what you can go for with the budget and gaming is your primary consideration, then yes. Okay, okay na to. For if this is what you can squeeze into the budget, 4070 Super is excellent for gaming. And then sige, fine. The 14400F not my first choice to pair with a GPU, pero pwede na, pwede na. I know, right? We haven't had any problems so far in fairness, but that's why we're trying to actively root them out. But I just saw one like I think because there was like one that went through my peripheral vision. It wasn't so much peripheral, forward vision or something. But they haven't munched on any wires naman so far. Man, that'll be a real pain in the ass if they started. Yes, the stock cooler na R55600X, and then for not overclocking, like you're just running it at the stock speed. Yeah, yeah, it's fine. We've done several builds, like a lot of builds na ganun. No problems. Oh, Rafael James answered it. Yes, I agree. R5 and RTX 3060, wala po bang bottleneck and FSP? Well, 1000 watts is really large. I mean, even a 4080 Super, a 4080, like I would really only suggest a 1000 watt for a 4090. And then parang based on what you're getting now, I don't think that is a reasonable expectation to be getting. So I think 1000 watts is overkill even if you want to future proof. 750 watts, 850 watts, okay na yan. Then a 3060 with a 7600X. I would get the 4060 because it sounds like you're getting a brand new build because you're getting 7000 series AM5. Um, if it's a brand new build, there's no reason why you would get a 3060, even if it is 12 gigabytes over a 4060, unless you really need the additional 4 gigabytes of VRAM. If let's say you're into AI research or something, pero nahihinayang ako eh. Parang sayang. Like even you're getting a 3060, I'm telling you to get a 4060, but even a 4060, parang I would want sana like a 4070 Super for a 7600X. And then a 750 watt PSU, okay na yun. Canada guy has not sent over any stuff yet so far. Oh, what's up, Ochi? Portable power stations more cost effective than the usual UPS. I have been seeing them, but more in the context of like camping and things like that. Like I don't know if I it, I think it might be overkill. Like if you substitute it for a UPS. But again, I am not super knowledgeable about that market, so I don't know if there are. It's like a fruit fly, Drosophila melagaster. Um, I don't know if the portable power stations have reached that price point that they're comparable to a UPS. I think mas mura pa rin kasi yung UPS eh. Parang the portable power stations pack a lot more juice than you would need. Unless you want to continue your gaming session, then yun, ibang usapan na yun. Oh, sa Pesto, how many CPU fans would you recommend po considering the temp here in the Philippines? Considering upgrading my case since it's a generic case with a single fan. Um, well, not to get super technical, but first of all, you're talking about case fans. They are a bit different from CPU. Actually, there's no such thing as a CPU fan. Like the closest. Well, sorry. Okay, fine. There is such a thing. I mean, there's a label on the motherboard that says CPU fan, but you don't generally call them CPU fans. The fans that you connect to the air cooler, the cooling tower of the air cooler, you just call them well, the air cooler fans or things like that. I don't really I haven't heard anybody call them like CPU fans talaga. But I mean in the context of your question, you're talking about the case fans and how many do you need? As many as you can. I mean, case fans are cheap, like relatively cheap, and then you can get good ones like from Arctic. Like you can go bonkers with the RGB and those can cost medyo mahal yung mga yan. Pero like Arctic fans, yung mga black fans, P12, P12, PS something something. Those are really good fans and they're relatively affordable. You get a pack of 5, that's excellent quality, that's excellent value. So basically, like how many fans should you have? As many as your computer and budget can hold. Um, because yun nga, they're relatively cheap, and then the possible gains that you get are outsized. Kumbaga, you're getting really value for money. And then so the argument is like, well, how much performance are you getting if you only have two fans instead of three fans? But yun nga, it's such a small price difference that any increase that you get, it basically yun nga, sobrang sulit na niya, kumbaga. I mean, so yeah, no need to think too much about it. Just research how many fans your case can hold, and then yeah, just get relatively inexpensive fans to cover up all of the fan mounts. All right, guys. Okay, so sorry, ang dami ng mga tanong. Again, I was not able to keep up, which is typical for live from the show. For Pwede Magtanong. Um, that's good. Rafael unfortunately did not get to bring his Aeron chair, so it's actually just in the house. But he really did like that chair. It is an expensive chair. But he swears by it. Sobrang comfortable niya. And yun, congratulations. Enjoy the chair. That is a good upgrade to have for your computer. All right. Like I really gotta go. I told my family I'd be back at 1 o'clock, so I might be a little. Well, it's gonna be a little late. But yes. About the podcast, I hope to have one within this week, or if not this week, like early next week. Like promise na talaga yun. So yeah, there are a lot of people. Um, Yun. So sorry, there are a lot of questions. Um, yes, it's okay to use Drumless for a longer answer to that question. Feel free to backtrack. I talked about it a while ago. So yun, sorry, I do have to leave. Pack up the shop and get home. Thank you so much for joining me for this back-to-back stream. I have taken note that there are a lot more people. Maybe I can do this nga again on the next holiday, like late night, maybe from the house. Or but I do like the hardware sugar. I like streaming from the shop. Let me just so I'm not in frame, but let me just show you around the shop a little bit. Yeah, you have the sign. You have the different computers. We are actually running a lot of diagnostics, which I didn't really get to talk about in Pwede Magtanong. Um, so this is how like the length, like we have a really long USB cable. So like basically that's at the door already, and I'm like midway through the shop, and oh shoot, I don't know. Nasa na ako? It's hirap without a cameraman. Let me just orient it a little bit. Yep, I think okay. That might make more sense. Just wanted to show you the ang layo nung like even here it's relatively okay looking yung Samyang lens. Oh, except tagilid yung the tripod is a little askew. All right. So, thank you everyone for joining me for the back-to-back streams. Hope you enjoyed it. Check back tomorrow, Wednesday, for a video on the Deep Cool Mystique 360, which is their latest and greatest AIO. Basically, I talk about why it's the most modern AIO for me. And we'll talk about it like why exactly, but ganun yung pagka-describe ko sa kanya. That's dropping Wednesday. Hopefully, I finish editing it tomorrow so that the members can view it before it becomes accessible to the public on Wednesday. So enjoy the long weekend. Thank you so much for joining me on this late night stream, the late night stream. So starting yesterday, 11 p.m. or so, and then concluding around 1 a.m. Stop MJG. I'm just being comfortable, okay? I mean, it's such a massive chair, so I have to I find this position to be comfortable actually. Yeah. Yun. So Yes, thanks so much for joining me. Enjoy the long weekend. Please tune in on Wednesday for the Mystique 360 video. And if you haven't watched yet, we have the video on the factory tour from Deep Cool. We have the Morpheus case review, which is also doing pretty well. And yes, all right, get some sleep, guys. Or baka when I get home and I find like all the members of my family are asleep, baka I'll just do a late night gaming session. Hey, holiday naman. Yun. Take care, guys. Have a good one. Wait, sorry, I do. I know, right? Because it's so big. I mean, it's such a humongous chair. See, I will just answer these two questions first. Hindi ba nakakatakot pag solo sa office and wala bang ghost? I have not experienced anything. But I don't want na biglang somebody will prove me wrong tapos may lalabas pala dito. So on that note, I will end the stream before baka may makita pa ako other than rats. So again, thanks so much for joining us on the stream and have a good long break.